Going to give you a little divine law download today on this idea of the 508C1A and that actual code. If you've never seen it before, we're going to show it to you. You're going to learn more about it in this brief message from Prosperous Legacy Advisors. My name is Bradley Logan. I am a recovering attorney, no longer using a bar license to practice law, no longer holding down a license which gives me the ability to legally lie. I now operate under divine law where we tell the truth in the things that we do and we get things in right alignment with God's law. And what I'm going to talk about today is this nice little code that is embedded into the man-made laws. It's called the 508C1A. And so I'm going to show you how and where that code can be found. And so we're going to look at the Cornell Law School University website. And the reason why we're going to look at this is because it is one of the main authorities. If you Google laws in the United States, Cornell Law School has been known to keep the record of all the up-to-date regulations and codes and ordinances and nonsense that man has made. And here we go. This is 26 U.S. Code at Section 508, special rules with respect to Section 501c3 organizations. And so, as I'll assume most of you who would be watching this are familiar with a 501c3, this is what I refer to as a statutory organization. Statutory means man-made as opposed to God's law. This is man-made law, the confusing law that has corrupted God's law in many cases. Again, not all, but many. This particular code we're going to look at today gives God's laws a wink, if you will, and blesses this idea that spiritual laws are above man-made law. So that is what the 508C1A code says. So here in this statute, this code, 26 U.S. Code 508, we will see that new organizations must notify Secretary that they are applying for recognition of Section 501c3 status, except as provided in subsection C. So let's just skip because none of this is going to apply if you are in compliance with subsection C. Subsection C right here says exemptions, mandatory exemptions from the other provisions that we don't need to look at are churches, their integrated auxiliaries, and conventions or associations of churches. Okay, so what this is saying is that if you are a 501c3 styled organization and you are for being put together for church purposes to create a church, your church and the integrated auxiliaries and conventions of churches or associations are exempt from what? From registering with the secretary. So what this says is that you do not need to get permission from your government, from the Secretary of State, from the federal government, or any jurisdiction related to the Internal Revenue Code, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump over here to ChatGPT, and we're going to ask ChatGPT to give us an interpretation of the 26 U.S. Code, Section 508. And let's see what ChatGPT has to say about this man-made code. So uh, it's saying right here, 26 USC is a part of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code that outlines how certain not-for-profit organizations, specifically those seeking 501c3 tax exemption status, must notify the IRS and comply with certain rules to be formally recognized as tax exempt. However, it also spells out important exceptions to these requirements. This section states new organizations must notify the secretary that they are applying for recognition of Section 501c3 status in order to be tax exempt, except Ooh, has a whole lot to say about it here. Let me just scroll back up to where we left off. Okay, so uh, ex new organizations must notify the Secretary of State they're applying for recognition of 501(c)(3) status in order to be tax exempt. What this means, most organizations, they want to be recognized as tax exempt under 501(c)(3) must file a form to say that they're exempt. And then it says down here, section 508C, statutory exceptions. Subsection A shall not apply to churches, their integrated auxiliaries, or conventions of churches. What this means, there are exceptions. These exceptions are built into the law. The following groups do not need to file a form to be recognized as tax exempt. Churches, integrated auxiliary of churches, conventions or associations of churches, or small nonprofits with receipts under 5,000 annually. So anyway, just pointing out here that what we're seeing is that the actual law from the Cornell Law School University database and confirmation from ChatGPT that the 508C1A code allows churches to exist and operate without even notifying the IRS or seeking approval from the government. So this makes a very strong case for why people ought to pay attention to this statute, despite the fact that their legal professional, their accountant, or their CPA doesn't seem to know anything about it or want to share anything with them about it or acknowledge that it's a valid way to operate a spiritual organization. And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight, pro tip from my perspective, having been a licensed attorney in the past and setting up 501(c)(3)s. We're not trained in our background, in our education as attorneys, to talk about non-statutory organizations, nor are CPAs. See, that license that the professionals get that are regulated by the states or the federal government and given to professionals to continue the programming that we're given in the universities does not allow us to think that we can operate without permission from Pharaoh, without permission from our government. And this is nonsense. It's just not true. And that's what we're here to do at Prosperous Legacy Advisors is help you see the truth, set yourself free from that matrix system, from that Babylonian trap, and step into a new paradigm, a new reality where you can operate from a law of love, from God's love, and you can do things that you haven't even begun to imagine because of the regulation, red tape, and the bureaucracy system that has kept you small and numb and dumb and running a program that doesn't allow you to step into your true spiritual calling, the true essence of who you are as a child of God, the true essence as a creator made in the image of God to do so much more than what we've been trained to do from Babylon. So that's what I got for you today. Love for you to consider these things. If you'd like to go a little bit deeper, you can read more about this in my book, divinelaw.com. You can get an order, you can get a copy of the book there. You can also get an audio version there, and we'd love to continue this dialogue in the future. So adios for now. We'll see you next time.